All right, let's talk about one of the most famous images in art history, maybe the most famous, Van Gogh's sunflowers. You know the ones I'm talking about. They're so vibrant, so intense, you can spot them from a mile away.
But here's the thing about things that are that famous. Sometimes we get so used to seeing them, we forget to ask, why? Why these paintings? What is it about these flowers that makes them so special? A true global icon. Well, that's what we're going to get into.
Okay, so first things first. To really understand the sunflowers, we've got to peel back the layers, go deeper than just the image you see on a poster.
Because, and this is key, it's not just one painting. Nope. Sunflowers is actually a whole series of paintings. And the ones we all know and love, the really famous, intense ones, they were all painted when Van Gogh was living down in Arles in the super sunny south of France. And, that's where this whole story really kicks off. And these paintings, they weren't just him practicing painting flowers. Not at all. They were actually born from something much, much deeper. They were about hope, about this incredible idealism, and honestly, a real longing for friendship. So picture this. Van Gogh's in Arles, and he has this big, beautiful dream. He called it the Studio of the South. It was going to be this amazing place, like a commune for artists where they could all live and create together. And the one guy he wanted there more than anyone, the artist he really looked up to, was Paul Gauguin. So while he's waiting for Gauguin to arrive, Van Gogh is just buzzing with excitement. And what does he do? He decides to paint something to decorate his friend's room. And guess what he painted? Yep, the sunflowers. They were literally a welcome gift. Just think about that. It's this incredibly personal, powerful symbol of his hope for their friendship and this amazing artistic future he imagined. Okay, so the reason why he painted them is huge. But the story doesn't stop there. We also have to talk about how he painted them. Because what Van Gogh was doing with the actual paint, it was absolutely revolutionary for the time. He used this technique called impasto. And it sounds fancy, but the idea is actually super simple. You just lay the paint on the canvas really, really thick. But when Van Gogh did it, man, it wasn't just paint anymore. It was almost like he was sculpting with it. And what that does is it gives the petals and the seeds this incredible three-dimensional quality. It's like you could reach out and touch the texture. It makes the flowers feel alive, electric even, like they're just vibrating with energy and literally bursting out of the canvas at you. And this is where you really see how much of a rule breaker he was. Think about traditional still life paintings back then. They were all about being perfect, smooth, super realistic, just pretty decoration. Van Gogh? He basically took that rule book and tossed it out the window. He wasn't interested in painting a perfect picture of a flower. He was painting the feeling of a flower. It was all about raw emotion, not realism. About spiritual energy, not just looking nice on a wall. And he funneled all of that intense feeling through one single, dominant color. For Van Gogh, yellow was so much more than just a color on the palette. It was everything. It was the blinding sun of the south of France. It was warmth. It was hope. It was life itself. It was the spiritual feeling he was constantly searching for. I mean, the entire series is just drenched in yellow. But it gets even deeper. The symbolism isn't just in the color. If you look really close at the flowers inside the vase, you'll see he's telling a whole other story. See, he didn't just paint a bunch of perfect, beautiful sunflowers. Look again. He painted them at every single stage of their life. You've got the little buds just starting out. You've got the big, glorious, fully bloomed ones. Then you've got some that are starting to wilt, their petals drooping. And finally, you see the dried up seed heads. It's the entire cycle of life, from birth to death, all together in one vase. And that's the really incredible part. He wasn't afraid of the decay. He wasn't hiding the ugly bits. He was celebrating them. He saw just as much beauty and power in a dying flower as he did in one that was in full bloom. It's this beautiful, profound acceptance of life and how nothing lasts forever.
So in the end, the sunflowers became a kind of self-portrait. They were a symbol of gratitude, how they always turn towards the sun. They were a symbol of that deep hope for friendship with Gauguin. In fact, Gauguin himself said they were completely Vincent. What a perfect way to put it. They were a direct reflection of his soul.
Now, as we know, the story with Gauguin didn't end well. The dream of the artist studio kind of fell apart. And tragically, most people just didn't get Van Gogh's art while he was alive. So that begs the question, how on earth did these paintings become some of the most famous in the world?
Well, it definitely wasn't an overnight success story. It was a slow burn. Back in his day, the art world just wasn't ready. They thought his work was too messy, too intense, just too weird. But then, after he was gone, a whole new generation of artists came along, and they looked at the sunflowers and saw genius. They saw the future of art. And from that point on, their fame just skyrocketed.
And look at them today. They're the crown jewels in the world's best museums. They're in every single art history book as the example of post-impressionism. And of course, they're everywhere in our culture. You've seen them on posters, mugs, tote bags, you name it. So let's circle back to that big question we started with. Why are they so special? Well, because they're not just a picture of flowers, are they? They're a story about friendship. They're a revolution in how to use paint. And they're this deep philosophical look at the beauty of the entire cycle of life. And that's why they still hit so hard today. They capture so much all at once. There's this incredible beauty, but also this real vulnerability. There's the bold technique, but also this ocean of emotion. They really capture Van Gogh's core belief that life is brilliant and beautiful, even when it's wilting and fading. So, next time you come across one of Van Gogh's sunflowers, maybe you'll see more than just the yellow paint. Maybe you'll see the story of a hopeful friendship, the feel of those thick, revolutionary brushstrokes, and that whole beautiful cycle of life and death in a single vase. Because now that you know the whole story, what do you feel when you look at them?